Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and let everyone come in. We have a few more people coming in now. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are here with Truist, and we're really excited to get started. We're going to talk about budgeting, net worth, and saving. First, I'd like to thank our innovation partners. These are our annual sponsors. We couldn't do the work that we do at the Chamber without them, so we're very appreciative. We also have a series of media partners. These are the partners that help us share the great stories coming out of our region. We do have an upcoming event tomorrow at noon as well, online via Zoom. This is going to be a very informal conversation about the book, Crucial Conversations, Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High. Definitely encourage everyone to come. You don't have to read the book to attend. So shoot me an email if you want me to register you. And now I will go ahead and hand it over to Dan Wright. He's with Truist. He's a professional and university banking consultant. And we also have one of our board members, Scott Waller, here to assist. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to you, Dan.
Yeah, good afternoon. Go ahead and get my presentation up there. But as I was introduced, my name is Dan Wright. I'm with Truist Professional and University Banking. And really all that means is that I focus around education, whether it be to schools, professionals, anyone that's kind of out there that's looking to learn a little bit around a strategy. So Scott, I do want to give you a minute to introduce yourself as well, and then I'll be happy to jump right in.
Good deal. I'm Scott Waller with Truist Wealth here in Danville, easily found across the alleyway from Ballad Brewing, which most of you probably know where that is. Also, I'm not sure if Patrick's on or not, my business partner, Patrick Wales. After this, if you want local contact to have discussions about not only what we're talking about today, but saving and investing to grow for your future, we're here to help. So with that, I'll kick it back to Dan.
All right, thank you very much. Well, we always love for these conversations to be that. I'm not a professor. I don't like to lecture. Hopefully you'll get some great value today, but we love to hear your thoughts throughout the conversation. So whether that be questions, or there's gonna be a portion that we'll have via the chat, or you can unmute yourself. We'd love to have you share. So we always like to start that with a little bit of an icebreaker. So hopefully this is a fun one. You guys will all be happy to see. And the question that I'd have that you can either add to chat or via voice is, if you could go anywhere on the world on a vacation, where would you go? So I'd love to see. Okay, we have Austria, Italy, Bora Bora, Ireland. So I'll tell you, okay, there's a second Bora Bora. Every time I do this conversation, Bora Bora seems to be a big one. So I see Spain there as well. Nova Scotia, Alaska. We have some professionals in the chat today. So one thing I'd like to say on that, as we get into some of these topics and we talk about, right, the fun of where we'd like to go, as we get into some of these discussions, especially around saving and budgeting, keep those fun things in mind, right? Some of the value to this discussion we're gonna have today is to not make budgeting and saving a chore, but maybe a means to the end. So maybe it's going to Austria, maybe it's going to Bora Bora, maybe it's something completely different, but keep those fun things and those fun life events in mind as we have these conversations. So I want to take a quick minute to kind of introduce you to maybe one of those typical people that's out there. So we have Shannon. She's 31 years old. She's married. She has a child that's 6 years old, and she has a pretty stable career. She's been working for about 12 years. Her most recent big life event is she just became a homeowner. In her spare time, she loves to visit new places, kayak, and spend a lot of time with her husband and daughter. So when you think about Shannon and we start thinking about, you know, our role here today to plan for savings, Can anyone share what they think could be some unexpected emergencies that could come up in her particular situation? So feel free to jump in chat. Divorce. Hopefully not, but yes, that could happen. I see that one. Water heater, HVAC, right? New home is an amazing life event. Comes with the excitement of moving into the new home, comes with added responsibilities. You see there furniture, uh, flood, medical leave at work, car accident. So you guys are coming up with some really great strategies, some things to think ahead. So a couple of things I look at there, right? So a new homeowner, as I said, it's such an exciting time. That's such an amazing life event, but it comes with some different responsibilities that maybe you didn't have before. You saw there, the car. I always like to share this because it's my personal story. So sometimes when things happen, they happen in a streak. So I had an unusual circumstance where my family and I went on this well-deserved vacation. We planned, we saved, we were so excited to go, and this was to go to the mountains. So I'm here in Florida, so I'm far from you guys. So it's always hot here. So going to the mountains to go skiing, which my kids had never done, was so exciting. So we planned, we saved for it, we felt great. We come back from that vacation. My wife comes in through the garage, steps on a floorboard, and up comes some water. And we're like, what's going on here? So needless to say, while we were gone, unexpected to us, we had a leak. Yes, insurance was there to cover some of that, but we had to do some on our own. And to carry the story on a little bit further, as I said, when things go wrong, they tend to go wrong. About a month later, because of all the construction that had started, our air conditioner went out. So because of all that dust, all those things. So now where we felt ultra prepared and we had saved for this vacation and had a nest egg set aside, there are those things we always want to be leery of and make sure we're prepared as best as possible along the way. So this is where we kind of get into the meat and potatoes of the topic. So emergencies can pop up at any time and shake your financial confidence. The biggest thing I'd say is you may never be able to be fully prepared, but what are some of those things that you can foresee that could definitely impact your financial confidence? So I'd love to hear some other things, maybe from your personal experience, that have popped up along the way. Medical treatment expenses, right? That's unforeseen. That can be a big one. New job, relocation, HVAC, you feel my pain. The AC is never the fun thing to replace. We're never prepared for it necessarily. It's never fun when you have it. So one thing that I'd like for you guys to consider as personal property tax in a new state, house fire. So one thing I'd like you guys to start thinking about is, are there ways to start saving for these type of emergencies? We are going to talk about some strategies along the way there. But what I would encourage you is, when you write down or you record those goals, they become top of mind. So we're going to talk about a few ways you can do that. And the better you can be prepared, the more comfortable you will be with life's challenges. So for myself, when we talked about my challenge, right? I had a pretty extreme challenge. I had that vacation, I planned for it. You don't have to answer this one in chat, but are there some things out there that could have helped me prevent some of that stress from happening? I'll say from personal experience, meeting people along the way, right? As we're growing up, as we're young professionals, moving through life's adventures, there are times where we can tend to live for the moment, right? That's great. We want to continue to do that. As we talk about saving for emergencies, budgeting, we never want to take away from the fun you should have during life. The goal of this is to simply say, are there some opportunities to set aside some little buckets that will be there when we need them most? Are we prepared for most circumstances, or do we have somebody to go to for guidance if we don't? So the biggest thing I could tell you for savings, and as I learned to do it well over time, and this is definitely an acquired skill. I worked for a bank. Even while I worked for a bank, sometimes I was not the best at saving. And I'd still say today I have some room to grow. But what I can tell you is as you have the ability to save, stress can be eliminated quite a bit, right? So for a lot of people, if they were to lose their job today, they would be in a really, really hard place, right? And so as you're employed, as you're doing well, as you're advancing your career, as I said, we are going to talk about some strategies where you can make sure you set some aside and really eliminate that stressful scenario that can pop up. This is where I'd love to hear you in chat, and hopefully we'll have somebody out there. Usually the answer is no, but do we have anyone out there that feels like they're prepared for the unexpected? And just a quick yes or no. Not a chance. No. Laugh out loud. No. No way. No. So as I said, don't feel guilty with that. That's an extremely common answer. If you ask me today, am I prepared for if I had another flood and the air conditioner to go wrong? The answer is probably no, right? But I did learn from that experience, and I've started to try to prepare a little bit better. It's okay that you're not prepared to that level, but this is your opportunity to start, right? Starting with a small amount, starting to save now is the difference between you creating that habit. I don't know about you guys, but one thing that's always helped me is if I don't see the money when it comes in from my paycheck, I tend to budget a lot better. So if it's not there, and just understand that starting small is okay as well. So here's a couple of tips that I'd really recommend that are super easy that you can start immediately. That first one is set up a separate savings account, and it's only for emergencies. The cool thing about apps today is you can usually name your accounts. So like for me, I have my everyday account, which is my checking. I have my emergency. It just says emergency on it. And I have whatever my next fun thing is I want to accomplish. So for example, if I want to go to Bora Bora, I name it Bora Bora because it keeps me on that track to, hey, this is a great fun adventure. The reason why you want to do that is kind of what I shared before. When it's separate from your normal finances, you plan so much better around it. That step 2 is very, very important. Those that are successful in savings always take advantage of step 2, and that's to pay yourself first. You could do that either by setting up your direct deposit to do a portion of your check every time you get paid, or all banks have the option to do what's called an automatic transfer. So if I get paid twice a month, I set up that I want to have X amount of dollars transferred without me having to do anything to that emergency savings account. That could be starting with $20, $25 and then going from there and increasing. But the biggest thing is starting. Once you start, usually it's able to snowball and really you start to see that success over time. And really the goal is to start saving where you can and at least get to that $1,000, right? That's that first threshold where you want to raise your arms up, say, yeah, I did it. I accomplished the goal. And then that's where you want to kind of kick it up that next notch. That's where you want to have at least those 3 months of living expenses prepared. Now, the reason why that is so important is, as I said, if you decide, we heard earlier in the chat, what if I want to relocate, right? Do I have that ability? Do I understand what that's going to cost, right? I have this great opportunity at this new job, but there's going to be a little bit of instability there, right? So am I prepared for it with my strong savings? In that case, if I had 3 months of living expenses saved, when that air conditioner popped up, I'd have the ability to pay for it outright instead of having a different means to do it. So once again, start with those small goals. Maybe your first goal is not 1,000, maybe it's 500, but start somewhere and take advantage of technology. So one of the things that we're going to talk about today that's great in this case is setting things on autopilot, right? So setting up a direct deposit or automatic transfer on autopilot is great because you can't ever make a mistake and not do it anymore. It does it for you. Now, later on, we will talk about how autopilot can also create some challenges, especially when it comes to your budgeting. So let's talk a little bit about budgeting and net worth. So this is what we call the values challenge. So I know there's a lot on this screen, but I'd like you to take a minute and kind of look through there and maybe pick out a couple things that maybe really stick out to you that are values in your life. And the reason why we're identifying values are these are things that we really want to focus on as we start budgeting, right? Those are the things that are going to give us the most enjoyment. So for me, for example, I think I shared it earlier, family trips is a big one. When it comes to holidays, yes, we buy our kids presents, but we usually try to limit it and focus more on a family vacation because we always have more fun and more memories that way. My kids might not agree. They might want the presents, but that's one of those things. The other thing is we do like, to an extent, technology. I mean, my wife is a big Apple fan and Peloton fan, right? Those have costs to them, but they're things she really, really enjoys. So I'd love to hear in chat maybe a few things as you look through this list that maybe some of your top values, or if there's something not on this list, please feel free to share as well. And I'll be very impressed if anyone on here puts planning for the unexpected, because I've never had that one. Christmas birthday gifts. We have people that love the holidays coming up. Staying credit card debt free. Side business, planning for the unexpected. Oh, we did have a planning for the unexpected. All right, I like it. Time with family, trips, being debt free. So the reason why we share these is we never want you to discard those things that truly make enjoyment and happiness. Now, while we do this, we also want to talk about some things maybe that are lower on your list, right? So if you see things on here that aren't high priority on your list, but as we talk about some of the budgeting strategies, you're noticing that you're spending quite a bit on them. Maybe that's an opportunity where you maximize happiness, but you also save some expenses along the way. So this is a good one, and I've had various amounts of information shared with me. So can anyone share how you keep track of where your money is going? So I'd love to hear in chat, how do you keep track right now? An Excel spreadsheet, wow, that's strong. I rarely see that. Let's see, do we have any other? Wow, we got some spreadsheet users here. This is a well prepared. An extensive spreadsheet, so one level up. I avoid looking at my bank account and hope things will work out, right? If we had a lot of honest answers, that is a lot of times how it works, right? What I hear a lot is, yeah, I kind of look at my mobile banking once in a while. I take a peek, and let's see, the opposite. So we got mobile banking here as well. Yeah, so that's a very common one, right? That's the great thing about what we've done technology-wise. We've made things very easy, right? It used to be 20 years ago, you'd get this big, long sheet of paper and you used to keep in your checkbook everything, and then you'd balance it and you match it, right? So with technology comes the ability that every day you can see what's happening in your account, right? And there's advantages and disadvantages to that. So the advantage is you can see it fast and easy, right? If there's something wrong or something that's charged incorrectly, if you're willing to look at it, you can notice it much quicker. But the other thing I would share is this is where we talked about earlier about, that savings plan, automatic pilot being good. This is where I'd like to share a little bit around autopilot maybe being bad. So I'll give you a couple examples in my personal life. And then this would be my challenge to you is as we go through to the end, can you identify some things maybe out there that you're on autopilot that maybe aren't that necessary? So one thing I'll share with you, the first one is, when I do my, so I actually don't use a debit card. I use my credit card for everything. And one of the things I love about that is rewards, but I also like that it groups my spending. So whenever my wife and I feel like a huge adventure, and that's sarcasm, we do take a look at that and see where our money is going. And so about 3 months ago, one of the things we did was we ran and we took a look. And we noticed some trends. So the first trend we noticed is that, let's just say my wife might have been going to Starbucks every day and spending about $9 to $10 a day. And while that's not a bad thing, we had a nice little discussion around, what does that look like over the course of the year, right? So when you factor that out and we talk about these values, what we value most, we looked at that, and let's just say we move that 7-day-a-week habit. We're not going to eliminate it, right? Because she said, I like Starbucks. Maybe I don't like it 7 days a week, Starbucks. I'm not getting that much value out of it, but I do like to have it those other 2 days. When you start looking at that 5 days a week and we multiplied it out, it was about $3,000 that we were spending there, right? And so when we looked at that and we looked at our values, we said, would we rather go on a trip or would we rather Starbucks 5 more days a week, right? And the reality was a trip, right? So as you start doing these value challenges, don't think of it as you have to eliminate everything you do. It's more about, can you see trends in your spending? And always remember that small changes on a day always equate to huge changes when you talk about a year or multiple years, right? So if you have a true goal in mind to go to Austria, sometimes there's an opportunity to do that by just making a minor change. Now, the other thing I'll share with you on autopilot is every company out there, right, loves for you to pay automatically, right? That has a lot of value. You never have a late payment. So whether it be your cable, your Apple TV, whatever that is, that convenience is amazing. Now, the reason why you want to take a moment, maybe during this next month, or maybe as you go into the new year, and review all your transactions through that mobile banking for the last 6 months, is to see maybe some of those things you're being charged on autopilot that you're actually not using. So I give you an example. My wife traveled for work about 2 years ago, and on the plane there was a free thing for the books by technology, Audible, and we saw it on there. We said, when's the last time you used Audible? They're charging you $10 a month, and the answer was, I haven't used it in a year and a half, right? So that was one example of what we did. Free trials are a big thing for that. I can tell you, as I told you guys, I have 3 kids, so I have almost every Disney Plus other app that you can imagine. But we got one of those for a very particular show we were watching, only $5 a month, but it was something on autopilot. We hadn't watched it for a year, right? So these are opportunities to really look at some of those costs out there that, although they're not huge, if you have them on autopilot, it's just money you're wasting, right? It's money you're kind of throwing away because it's not anything that you're actually getting any tangible value out of. So I just want to share that with you because I think that's, some good examples. And I know in my case, I found about $7,000 in wasted money for the course of a year. That were things that just were on autopilot, and it took me an hour to cancel them all. And now I have that almost found income, which could give me that emergency savings I need. So I challenge you guys to really take a look at that and find those things that maybe are the opportunity. So the other thing that I would encourage you to do, I saw a lot around Excel spreadsheets. So those are great because they do group them. There's a couple of things out there. We do have an OnUp site that has all that information as well if you don't have your own spreadsheet. And then the other thing is there's so many quality free budgeting apps out there. So if you are an iPhone user or not, there's 3 or 4 apps that if you just went to your app store that are basically 5-star apps that are free that make budgeting fun. So if you prefer the phone style technology versus the Excel spreadsheet, don't let that stop you. There's plenty of great tools out there that will congratulate you all along the way as you meet those goals, and will give you that advice that maybe is something to look at, that maybe is a common thing that other people saw as a wasted expense. So I'd encourage you guys to either use that technology path or take along what some of the other people are doing, which is that education. And then I would say track your spending, right? Break them down into those largest categories and see where there's some opportunity, right? There's things that are fun. So entertainment, usually experiences, those are fun. And then there's ones that are not so fun, but are necessary, right? Debt, those education expenses. And I would always challenge you that as you track that spending, if you see one of those that you're considered not as fun, engage a professional, right? So if you do have some debt out there, if you do have some things that maybe are creating a little bit of stress, a lot of times there's opportunity to decrease that impact, right, through a professional. So especially around that debt portion, Don't think that you have to go on alone. That's one of the reasons why we do partner, is we're happy to give advice where advice is due. So the next thing we wanted to talk about is, do you keep it or do you change it, right? So I shared a couple of things that I got rid of. I shared the Starbucks, so we didn't get rid of it, but we changed it. But you start from left to right. So you have your values and then you kind of shift over, right? So the values are those things that you really kind of have to do, right? You have to pay off that debt. If you have education, you have to do those things. And then rent, dining, the latest gadgets, nights out, and travel. So, you know, when you look at this, you want to separate values versus what you have to do, right? Because the have to do's, there's no choice, right? I need a roof over my head. I have to live somewhere. I have to do those things. The rest, start categorizing them. Which one gives me the most enjoyment? Which one maybe brings no value? And that's an opportunity for me to budget and align correctly. So I want to pause here a minute, because we do have Scott on here, who is definitely better at this topic than me. But we want to touch a little bit around, first of all, I'll ask the question, then I'll kind of turn it over to him. We a lot of times get questions around what is net worth, right? And what is a high net worth? And so we'll start with this question. I'd love to see you answer in chat. So when you think of high income equaling high net worth, would you say true or false to that question? So we got a lot of falses. I could tell you we do get a lot of falses, which is great because everyone knows it's a trick question. So one thing that I'd like to kind of cover here, Scott, if you could, because I know this is an area of expertise for you, is share a little bit maybe around net worth, and then maybe some of those things that they need to consider as they move through their careers in life.
Thanks, Dan. You mentioned it. One thing that I fall back on a lot, and I had it pulled up, I just lost it, but what's new? It's called, if you Google the latte factor calculator, and you mention Starbucks and the addiction, if you go to lunch versus bringing your lunch to work, I just think this is a good tactic. But the latte factor calculator, you can put these numbers in and see what it really costs you. So for example, if you're spending $10 a day on whatever that may be, whether that's lunch or coffee or whatnot, and you could grow that money at 8%, and you had a 45-year working career. Any guess, you can put it in chat, any guess of what that totals? Just any crazy guess? All right. It's $164,160. So $164,000 is a lot of money. You can do a lot with that. The foregone earnings is $1,439,000. So the real cost of spending $10 a day on lunch turns out to $1,603,460. And that's not to scare anyone, but it's to say that, $10 is not a lot of money to most everyone. It's just $10. So if you could cut that and save half of it, take your lunch to work, walk during lunch. I mean, just don't blow the small amount of money, because it really does add up over time. So I think that's pretty fascinating. You can Google latte factor calculator. It's under financialmentor.com, and you can put in any amount of money and any frequency, and then what that money would grow over time. And so we used to use an 8% growth rate on that. So point is, a lot of people make a lot of money and then they spend a lot of money, right? And some professions are more likely to do that than others. But if you are, living fast and you're buying cars and you're traveling and you're going out all the time, it's going to have that kind of impact. It's okay, but at some point you can save less money. You can put away less per paycheck the earlier you start. And so high income, it depends on where you live. In Southern Virginia, versus Orlando where Dan is. I mean, the average income is a great difference, but it doesn't mean that you can't have a wonderful lifestyle somewhere like here. We have a low cost of living in Danville, so it should be easier to put more money away. So, to dovetail what you've been talking about, automatically is what we do. So once you get the things that Dan have set up, that he's discussed about getting a little money aside, making sure that you're paying your debts, and still having a good time, what's the delta? What's the rest? And so in most cases, from an investing standpoint, is you want to get 1,000 for that too. So maybe it's the second 1,000 after the emergency that you want to save up. You can do that in a brokerage account. And then that's the initial investment minimum for most funds. And then subsequent investments can be as little as $50. So if you think about saving up $1,000 and then putting $50 a month away, it should certainly be a doable amount that can really add up, over time. And so high net worth is just everything minus debts. What do you have minus your debts? And you certainly want to budget, just like Dan's talked about, to whittle down debts. You can consolidate. I know Amber's on here from Truist as well. Happy to work with folks. But if you want to sit down with someone, help budget, get the ball rolling, come up with some ideas. How much? Certainly, if you're participating in a 401k, if it's offered through your business and there's a match, well, it certainly do the amount that they're going to match. So if they're matching 6% dollar for dollar, you definitely need to withhold 6% of your pay to max out on that. So just a high overview of how it relates, if you should be saving. Setting up automatic savings is a great idea. And we're also happy to answer any questions directly. Also under the 770-4662, that's Patrick Wales, my partner, and he can also chime in if he wants to say anything here.
Hey, Scott. Yeah, I would just echo that. I think that just to boil it down is that we want to encourage people to tell their money where to go so they don't have to wonder where it went.
Excellent.
Yeah, I love that. And, I think it's always one of those hard things, like as I get older, but I hear it all the time, right? I wish I knew 20 years ago what I know now. And I think sharing that amount, right? I saw in the chat, it was a sheesh, it was a wow, it was almost unbelievable. But the sooner you start, everyone will tell you the better, right? And we heard it there. So as I say, as you create that ability to plan for emergency, don't forget about the future, right? Get yourself to a place where you're comfortable, and then let's get you started on working towards that future so you're comfortable as well. So thank you very much for sharing there. So a couple of things I did want to share here, and then we'll kind of wrap up into some questions and answers. Is these are kind of just some general overviews of what we talked about a little bit here today. So number one goal, start looking through some of those items that are on autopilot, or some of those items that maybe don't bring the value, whether it be that $10 lunch, maybe a few days a week bringing in lunch, or maybe it be that Starbucks, whatever it may be. Where are those opportunities that you're not really getting that much extra value for the money that you're losing over time? A lot of you have that Excel budget created, right? If you don't, we do have resources that you can do that on your own. Or if you prefer digitally, there's lots of quality apps out there that can help you on the way. The hardest thing is starting, right? So starting is the hardest thing. So over this next 30 days, get with your employer or go into your banking app. Change that automatic payment from your direct deposit. Maybe it's $20 per pay cycle to go into that new account that's set aside for emergencies, for fun, or for investing as you get that guidance. The other thing I would say is, if not, go into that app, right? You have the ability to set up that automatic transfer, do it sooner rather than later. The other thing that I'd say is plan for upcoming expenses, right? Whether it be that insurance, those things that happen every 6 months, every 12 months, that car scenario, be prepared, right? That confidence comes from knowing that I have something set aside, and if something goes wrong, I have a way to truly, truly fix it. The other thing that I'd add here is that step 3 there, right? So automate bills and short-term savings for major purchases. So what we mean by that is, separate what you're looking to do a year from now, 3 years from now, and 5 years from now. I'd love to tell you 20 years from now, but a lot of times that's challenging to do, right? It's okay to have different savings goals and different paths. You don't need to have just one. Really look at what you're looking to do in the future. If you currently rent and you're looking to get in a house, right, there's other expenses that go into that. Engage one of the professionals, like we have Amber on the phone locally there, that can kind of walk you through those steps to making sure you're prepared for any scenario that pops up. And then that number 2 there, I think we've talked about that ad nauseum, but I always believe in it, right? Your budget should not be a bad word. It should not be a chore. It should be a means to maximize and take account for your values, what you want to accomplish today, tomorrow, in the future, right? So really look at what gives you that joy. Don't eliminate it, because then you're going to quit very quickly, but plan a little bit around it. So one thing I want to share on here, and then I think we have Amber on, I'll let her say hi as well. One of the big things we believe in is what's called partner plan in action. And really all that is that we believe that, during your journey, whether it be a life event, budgeting, savings, or even looking at that retirement, a lot of times people don't have a partner to really have those hard conversations with. And because they don't have that partner, a lot of times it's really challenging to create a plan, right? Maybe they start, stop. But one thing we can promise you is with a partner, a plan always gets created. And that last step is usually the even harder one, right? Action. Who's holding you accountable to make sure these things that I say I want to accomplish, I know are going to make my life better? Who's there to push me a little bit along the way? So Amber, I don't know if you were able to jump on. Are you on?
Yeah, I had to my cell phone. I was having technical issues on the computer. Anyway,
Yeah, no worries. I know you're our person in the field that lives PPA. You have clients all the time, clients and non-clients. Maybe you could share a little bit around what you do and how you help locally there.
So my as a branch leader, ultimately I'm working with my team, tellers included, but what we try to do is look for opportunities when we see them. And also just to make our clients that we're working with know this is what I'm seeing. I know on the regular, I'll have clients sitting in front of me and see high credit card payments, and we'll have little conversations about those. And, we might find opportunities to utilize their house to lower those payments, lower the interest rate, and work on paying off debt. So to speak to a lot of what you're saying, and what a lot of I saw participants chiming in with, was that debt is a big piece of it as far as anyone's financial picture. So I feel like if we can identify ways to reduce your debt, pay your debt off quicker, lower your interest rate, it puts more money in your pocket, which can contribute to the saving and planning and all of that for your future. So that's ultimately what I think my goal is here, is just to help my clients identify and help my team identify with their clients opportunities to save and grow your money.
Yeah, thank you. I know at the end you'll kind of add your contact info to chat, because I know you're kind of there if people have unique individual conversations they want to have. And don't be shy, right? We're here to help and meet you wherever you're at in that journey. And we're happy to share our expertise, and obviously Scott can as well. So the other thing I just want to share with you guys is what's called our Money and Mindset. That's a really cool podcast style learning. So what it does is it allows you to really delve into some of these topics, whether it be budgeting, savings, retirement, taxes, all those topics. They're quick 5 to 8 minute podcast style learnings that are interactive, but are quick, right? So I'd encourage you to leverage those tools out there that are there for you. So in this case, if you don't have an Excel spreadsheet that you're already budgeting, leverage this site. to start working towards that process of budgeting. So I know we're kind of got a little bit of time left. We're right at 12:40. We always like to have time left over in case there's questions that would like to be asked that we could clarify and answer. Love to, I guess, turn it back over, Maddie, and see if you wanted to open up if we have time for Q&A, and then we could use the chat for that.
Yeah, feel free to unmute if you have any questions, or you could place them in the chat. I know somebody earlier asked if you could define high net worth.
Scott, that's probably a loaded question, but I'm going to defer to you, sir, because I know it's probably different for each person, but maybe you can give us a general overview.
It is, and it's also, folks talk about accredited investors, which means that you have to have enough to invest in certain types of vehicles. And so in many cases, that's $1 million, but it's also just related to where you are, where you live, and what your lifestyle is. So you could say $1 million, but in certain places, it doesn't have to be that.
All right, I do see a question in chat. So we have any tips on biweekly budgeting when so many expenses and payments are monthly? So I know I can share, and then feel free, Amber or Scott, if you want to jump in. One of the things that I think was the biggest challenge for me as I started to learn how to manage my bills was it's very easy to focus on living paycheck to paycheck. So it sounds kind of silly and it's hard at first, but my goal was every month to raise the balance in my checking account by $150. And by doing that, what I did over the course of a year was I always had all my bills a balance that would pay them 1 month in advance. Now it sounds very basic, but I knew I couldn't do that all at once. But I found that I could find a number that worked for me. And by the end of that year, now I'm not worried about paying stuff on the first because I'm already a month ahead, right? And if I continue that journey, then I have the ability, especially as my income increases, to not only do that, but then plan for all these other things. So Scott and Amber, I'm happy to open up to you guys, but I know that's one thing that worked personally for me. And it's not immediate, but you just had to start it, and it felt good once I had that nest egg there.
I mean, I could chime in on the budgeting, something clients to help with that. You have the opportunity in some cases where you could have a second account. And so if you get paid twice a month or every other week, you could set aside half of your car payment or half of rent, whatever your expenses may be, into one of those accounts and set up maybe those bills to be paid out of that account, leaving your other account to be for spending money or something where you can do something fun with it, whatever it may be. So you don't have to just set aside savings. You could set aside money for your bills as well. So everything's kind of automatic and you're only taking a little portion out of each paycheck versus having to rely on that one paycheck at the beginning of the month to pay the majority of your bills and then waiting for the next one to hit.
Perfect. And I'd say if you want to get on that journey either way, I promise you, if you look at your last 6 months of spend, you're going to find a few things real quickly that are going to shock you, that if you kind of just tweaked them a little bit, you're going to get ahead of this game. And when that first of the month comes around, you're going to be more than prepared. But that's a great question, and we get that a lot. Let's see. It says, I realize there will be some variation, but what approximate amount do you recommend most folks have in a regular savings account readily available for emergencies? At what point should you look at moving savings to investments? Scott, do you want to tackle this one first, or do you want me to jump in?
I would just say that that in general, it could be that 1,000, it could be 3 months, it could be 6 months. You hear a lot about getting your savings up to 6 months before you move forward on investments. But if you are working somewhere that provides you with a retirement plan that's a match, that may be something that you want to factor in, and instead of waiting to build up 6 months.
Yeah, and I'd say, it's always based on your current circumstance, and what's correct today might not be correct tomorrow. So for example, somebody earlier used the scenario of, maybe it looks like a year from now, if you were to be promoted in your current role, you'd have to move 1,000 miles away, right? So that emergency / savings might need to grow some to take account for that. So don't think that circumstance can't be part of it, right? If you have a job and you feel it's really, really strong, and your income is strong and you're going to get promotions and bonuses, then maybe that savings doesn't have to be as high, and you're actually losing something by not investing it. So I'd say each one is unique, and that's where engaging a professional is always the right way to go, because they can look at your scenario and really kind of vet that out. All right, well, we'll give it another minute or so, and we might be wrapped up with the Q&A, but we'll be happy to answer any others. Amber, I don't know if you have the ability to add your contact in chat. If not, I can throw it in there. Scott, I don't know if you wanted to do that as well, but we wanted to make sure that we are accessible if you have those one-off questions that are more detailed. If not, I should be able to get that in the chat as well. And then I guess if we don't see any questions, Maddie, I'll turn it back to you.
I'll just give it 1 second for y'all to drop your contact information in the chat, but I will also be sending this recording out to everyone later this afternoon or maybe tomorrow morning, depending on how long it takes to upload. I will also include all 3 of their contact information. So if you don't get the chance to write it down.
That's perfect. Even better. I love that one even better. Then there's no copy paste needed.
All right. Okay, well, I will go ahead and do that if nobody else has any questions. Thank you all for joining us today. Feel free to send me any feedback you have, and we're looking forward to the next Young Professionals event. Thank you guys so much for presenting super helpful information.
Thank you.
Thanks to everyone.
Bye.